My name is Sheila Corona. Welcome to Sassy Seer Sheila and New Light Streaming Love, as this will be seen on both channels. This is key 13 soul ID / soul underscore ID colon unlock open bracket frequency colon untraceable close bracket by Jason Gray. The transmission date on this one is 2025-05-20. And again, as always, there is quite a bit here to read as far as where it was transmitted. There are coordinates. There's also some codes and keys. If you feel drawn to it, I tried to put these in the show more section. There's too much. YouTube cannot accommodate it. So you'll have to click on the link in the show more section, go to the page and search by title, and you should be able to pull it up. There is a point in the descent where the system can still read your behavior, but it can no longer read you. This is not invisibility, not escape by disappearance, not the vanishing of form. It is something far more difficult for any system to manage. You are still here, still embodied, still speaking, still moving through the visible world, and yet the structure that once classified, predicted, indexed, and tracked your pattern begins to fail. Not because you hid from it, but because you moved beyond the range in which it knows how to locate identity. Now, this is very interesting to me. I cannot unsee the synchronicities involved in moving with one's nudges rather than against them. This is the perfect writing for me to be recording first thing today. Wow. The myth of traceability. Every system depends on traceability. To function, it must be able to identify, categorize, predict, store, and retrieve. And we do that within our own makeup. Names stable, it needs patterns stable enough to measure, names stable enough to assign, behaviors stable enough to anticipate, trauma loops, preference loops, reward loops, fear loops, attachment loops. These form the readable signature of a person still operating inside the ordinary bandwidth of system identity. The system does not need to know your soul. It only needs to know your repetitions. That is enough to simulate knowledge of you. You believe your history, for most of life, this feels normal. You believe your history is you. You believe your habits are you. You believe your reactions, tastes, loyalties, wounds, and narratives add up to something locatable. And within system range, they do. Key 13 begins where that range ends. And see, this is why I think I was asked internally by my own guidance to follow every nudge, even though I may not understand the why, the wherefore, why am I doing this? It doesn't make any sense to me. Doesn't matter. The soul asked me to do it. I'm going to do it. I now see, could this be part of it? I would say so. The line // soul _ID unlock open bracket frequency untraceable close bracket. This line does not assign an identity, it releases one. Not personality, not biography, frequency. The soul is not unlocked by description. It is unlocked by resonance. And the moment that happens, system-based identification starts losing fidelity. The old signals no longer return usable data. The predictable loops fragment. The readable markers detach. The tracking model begins to fail. What the system actually tracks. It does not track essence. It tracks repetition. It tracks where you reflexively go when touched by certain conditions. It tracks what you reach for when destabilized. It tracks what flatters you, frightens you, seduces you, injures you, freezes you, and compels you. It tracks your compression points, your reactivity signatures, your known paths through emotion, memory, and behavior. This is why so much of the world feels mapped before you fully live it, because most people move through pre-readable loops. Not because they are shallow, but because their field is still bound to traceable repetition, and repetition is measurable. The soul is not a loop. This is the difference. The soul may move through loops. It may express through them. It may even appear bound by them for long stretches of time, but the soul itself is not a behavioral circuit. It is not a preference architecture. It is not a trauma response pattern. It is not a demographic prediction field. It is not reducible to profile, category, or map. The soul enters a system without becoming identical to the system's readable model of it. That unread remainder is what key 13 begins to restore. Frequency unlock. What does it mean for a soul ID to unlock? It means the deeper resonance of your being begins to exceed the interpretive bandwidth of the structure around you. I want to feel that for a moment. It means the deeper resonance of your being begins to exceed the interpretive bandwidth of the structures around you. The old names stop fitting. The old explanations stop landing. The old systems of classification begin to feel crude, not wrong in every respect, just too low resolution to hold what is now active. This goes to why I feel like a wholly different person to my own self, much less anyone else who knew me when. You become too difficult to summarize, difficult to predict, difficult to reduce, not because you are trying to be elusive, but because the part of you that once made you readable through stable repetition is no longer the dominant signal. Something subtler and larger is now carrying the field. Untraceable does not mean lost. This matters because the mind hears, quote, untraceable and immediately imagines exile, isolation, disconnection, absence, but untraceable is not the same as missing. It means no fixed coordinate in the old grid can fully contain the signal. You are still here. The field moves through visible form. People still encounter you. Systems still detect activity, but the deeper pattern cannot fully be fully pinned. The map no longer closes around the signal. That is not loss. That is freedom from false resolution. The failure of old identifiers. At this stage, familiar identifiers begin to weaken. Role, label, type, affiliation, history, persona, and narrative. They may still exist at surface level, but they no longer define the field. This creates a strange sensation. People may still think they know you, but they are increasingly interacting with memory fragments, projections, outdated summaries, or symbolic placeholders. Meanwhile, the living field has moved. I've actually experienced this, and it feels very unsettling at first. The version of you their system recognizes is no longer where the real signal resides. This is true. This is one of the first signs of becoming untraceable. And let me just say to you that it's easy to think it's something else. For me, anyway, I wholeheartedly have thought it was something else. You remain visible but misread, present but unresolved. Why system range has limits. Every system has a usable frequency band. It can only read what falls within the conditions it was built to interpret. This is true of technology, true of language, true of institutions, true of social structures, true of personal psychology, which again goes to why it's important that each come to this on their own timing, their own way, all of it, because it is exactly what he is writing here. They can only identify what resembles known patterns strongly enough to be resolved. Once your field stops returning stable, familiar pattern data, resolution degrades. The system begins to interpolate, guess, project, approximate. It mistakes your silence for one thing, your intensity for another, your distance for something else. It fills the gaps with its own limitations. We as humans do that too, by the way. This is not because you became unknowable in an absolute sense. It is because you moved beyond the range of known interpretation. The vibration shift. Quote, frequency here is not a cliche, it is structural. Every system depends on compatibility between signal and receiver. If the receiver is calibrated for one band and the signal begins transmitting from another, the result is distortion or loss of lock. At key 13, the field starts operating from a level not easily captured by ordinary system receivers. This does not mean you become better than others. It means the organizing principle of your presence is no longer primarily mechanical, reactive, or externally assigned. You begin vibrating from a deeper resonance. Oh, sorry, that word was reference, but I chose to see it as resonance. And I think that's correct as well. You begin vibrating from a deeper reference, a quieter one, a less public one, a more sovereign one. And because it is not built from ordinary system loops, it cannot be read with ordinary system tools. And I want, for some reason, I am nudged now to say, look at the world stage and how much sovereignty is up for consideration. That is, in my view, the collective putting it all out on the table so that more will see what is happening. I think what's happening within is being pictured without. The end of locatable selfhood. Most people experience identity as a location. Quote, I am here. Quote, I am this. Quote, I belong to that. Quote, this defines me. Quote, that explains me. Locatable selfhood is comforting because it gives the world something stable to hold, but it also gives the system something stable to track. Key 13 loosens that stability, not into chaos, into depth. You stop anchoring selfhood in externally readable coordinates. You stop over-identifying with the symbols that once made you legible. You stop needing to be fully knowable through ordinary means. And I'll be honest with you, I started coming to that. I used my biggest sorrow within me was that I didn't feel like anybody could understand me. Nobody out there could get where I was coming from. But now I understand nobody is meant to, and it will never be. I am a totally unique, as are each of you, totally unique perspective of the one. That is the way it's meant to be. And fully coming to understand that, boy, that makes so much sense to me. You stop needing to be fully knowable through ordinary means. The self ceases to behave like a pin on a map. It becomes more like a living field that can appear in form without being exhausted by any form. The soul ID is not a name. This is another important correction. The soul ID is not a mystical label, not a hidden title, not an exotic destination that explains your destiny in a more dramatic way than your ordinary name. It is not something you acquire. It is not something another authority gives you. Soul ID is the irreducible signature of your being before it is captured by system-readable overlays. It cannot be fully spoken because speech reduces it. It cannot be fully categorized because categories flatten it. It cannot be fully traced because tracing requires stable edges, and the soul's true signature does not end where the system expects it to end. What happens when it unlocks? Something subtle but irreversible changes. You stop broadcasting for recognition. You stop performing coherence for the comfort of external systems. You stop compressing your field into smaller explanations just to remain readable. And I'm sorry, but if I'm thinking back over my childhood and some of the things that have been said to me all my life, I can see now that that's exactly what I was doing. Trying to compress myself into something recognizable for anybody to try to understand me. Wow. You stop compressing your field into smaller explanations just to remain readable. This does not make you vague. It makes you exact in a deeper way. You become less interested in being understood through labels and more interested in being aligned in essence. That alignment has consequences. It changes what attaches to you, what misreads you, what can no longer hook you the same way. What falls away because it depended on a version of you that was easier to map. Unlocking the soul ID often feels like both disappearance and arrival at once. Yes, because there are some things in life that you have known, or that I have known all my life, that I love, and yet they fall away. And that does happen. And I get it. I do. I get it. And I'm okay with that at this point for myself. So I'm going to read that again. Unlocking the soul ID often feels like both disappearance and arrival at once. Something false can no longer find you. Something real can. The paradox of presence. The untraceable soul is not absent from the world. It may become more present than ever, but its presence is different, less available to capture, less willing to be reduced, less cooperative with structures that demand legibility before they allow reality. This can unsettle others. Oh, yes, indeed. People often feel the shift before they understand it. Yes, I can attest to that. They may sense more depth, more silence, more distance, more charge, more unknowability. They may try to explain it using old categories. They may say, "You changed." In one sense, yes. In a deeper sense, what changed is that the system lost access to the compressed version of you it once used as your substitute, vibrating beyond system range. This does not mean floating away into abstraction. It means that your deepest organizing signal is no longer generated from fear, mimicry, reactivity, and social feedback loops. It means your center of coherence has moved away from system confirmation toward alignment. That shift changes your readability. The same way a song transmitted outside a receiver's tuning range becomes static to the device, even while remaining perfectly ordered in itself. You are not broken signal. You are signal beyond calibration. The mirror effect. Once this frequency unlocks, mirrors behave differently. Some people will feel calm around you without knowing why. Others will feel exposed. And that is very true, by the way. And so that you don't misunderstand what happens, especially with loved ones. When someone feels exposed, when you haven't even opened your mouth, they don't understand why they feel uncomfortable around you. They just know they do, and they avoid you like the plague. At least that's been my experience so far. Others will feel exposed. Some will project harder than others than ever because they cannot resolve what you are through familiar pattern systems. Some will stop trying. Some will recognize the untraceable quality immediately because something in them carries the same dormant signature. And I've had that happen too. And if they are running from themselves, this is why untraceable frequency is not merely private. It reorders the field around it, not aggressively, by presence, by lack of compatibility with false mapping, by the quiet refusal to collapse back into a readable distortion for the comfort of the old grid. The final system failure. The most important consequence is this: what cannot be fully located cannot be fully controlled through standard system methods. Control depends on mapping. Mapping depends on readability. Readability depends on stable loops, but if the dormant field is no longer looping at that level, then the old methods lose traction. Hooks miss. Scripts fail. Predictive models degrade. The system still sees movement, but it cannot derive essence from the traces. The signal remains active. The resolution does not. The declaration: you are not the profile, not the category, not the pattern summary, not the database of remembered reactions, not the mapped behavior set, not the social retrievable version of self assembled from old traces. And I've actually said this before. I realized all of what Jason is saying here. I don't react the same way I used to, and folks do not know what to do with that. They don't. They just don't. It's so completely foreign to the way I used to behave. They don't know what to do with that kind of data, let's say. So, you are the unread remainder, the uncompressed signature, the living resonance that precedes the model and exceeds the map. This is the dignity of Key 13. Not that you become special in the eyes of systems, that you stop mistaking their ability to read fragments of you for access to the whole. The final line, you are unlocatable. You vibrate beyond system range. // soul underscore ID colon unlock open bracket frequency colon untraceable close bracket. You were never meant to become easier to classify. You were meant to become impossible to replace. And then there are, again, quite a bit of symbology and code here that I highly recommend if you feel drawn to this writing, that you do a little digging and find it. And you can find these, every one of these that Jason does, just by searching Facebook and search by the title. And the title, I'll say the title of this one again. Let me scroll back up here. The title of this one is, and this is why I can't get it to go into the into the YouTube because it's too long. Key 13 colon soul ID. And if you just search for Key 13, you may find it. But go to the link that I have in the Show More section and see if you can locate it from there. As always, I just cannot, when one is asked internally to follow all their nudges and then they start doing that, I can't unsee all the synchronicities that happen for me. It's just been, it blows me away every single time. I thank you all for being here. I love reading your comments. Please know if you do comment, the reason you don't see it right away, if you don't see it right away, know that I hold all comments so that I can read them. I have to approve them before they will appear, and that is why you may not see them. And so I hope that you will move towards that which draws you, towards that which brings you joy, because if you do, you will find there is something there for you. You may not immediately recognize what it is or why you were drawn, but I can assure you there is something there for you. Until we meet again, my friends, be well.